Hi everybody, my name is Mary Elizabeth Doyle, and today I'll be presenting my project called Casting Controversies in Media Fallout. I'll walk you through some recent examples where some casting decisions had led to some major online reactions and controversy, and we'll discuss it using the critical process. Before we start, I'd like to first take a moment to explain what the critical process is. The critical process is a multi-step plan, but we'll be only focusing on the first three. Description, which is the who, what, where, and when of media. Analysis, which are what are the patterns shown across all the different cases. And at the end, we'll discuss the interpretation. It is what I think the patterns mean when it comes to society and media. So to get things started, in 2019, Disney announced that Halle Bailey would be the lead actress in their live-action remake of The Little Mermaid. Everybody completely exploded on the internet, having the hashtag #NotMyAriel trending, and YouTube videos criticizing Disney's woke agenda went viral. A lot of the backlash came from people claiming that Disney was changing the traditional character and that The Little Mermaid should stay with the German culture and keep her red hair and fair skin, while others were saying that the people who were wanting the traditional character were being openly racist and that Halle should be the Little Mermaid because of her talent alone. At first, Disney was very silent about the matter, trying to avoid controversy, but later they started purposely putting ads out showcasing Halle's talent and her musical skills by releasing cute little heartfelt teasers that a lot of people were able to win over, but a lot of people were still hooked on the fact that Disney was trying to steer away from the original character's physical looks. The next artist that I'll talk about was Zendaya, who was casted as MJ in the Spider-Man Homecoming series. So the reason why this one had a backlash is a lot like the first reason. People said that DC was or Marvel was going away from their original Mary Jane, who had red hair and fairer skin. A lot of fans were angry about this, but Zendaya decided to handle it by saying that she's not playing Mary Jane, but instead she's playing Michelle. Marvel also tried to minimize the controversy by heavily marketing her as not MJ and instead as a different person or a different character altogether before the movie came out. And they also mentioned how they were adapting the movie anyways, making Spider-Man originally a teenager, and how they usually go off script. The next person I want to talk about is Nashuti Gatwa. He's a British actor who was originally, a lot of people know him from Sex Education, but he also recently got casted as the next Doctor Who person. So when it came to this, a lot of people at first praised this choice, especially since not the black and white version, but the newer version of Doctor Who has purposely made progressive steps. Like they've had same-sex couples before, they've had transgender people on there. Like before it even became a thing, they've had that for many years now. But for a lot of other people, there was a huge backlash saying that it went away from the traditional claims of the original Doctor, and they also said that since they were purposely casting an African American person, it got too political. The BBC, of course, countered these like they usually do when it comes to casting Doctor Who, because this is not the first controversy they've had. They had previous controversies when they casted a woman and when they also casted an older man to play the Doctor, and they made sure to emphasize the fact that Nashuti's acting skills are amazing and they fit the role perfectly. And they also made sure to emphasize the fact that they've always had this natural type of evolution and progressiveness when it comes to the show and its legacy. The last person I wanted to talk about was Rachel Ziegler, which is her acting role in Snow White. A lot of people know about because it just got released recently, and there've been a lot of different things surrounding this film that caused controversy. But as for the actress herself, there was severe backlash already at the fact that she was a Latino playing Snow White, who's originally from German origins, and the fact that the non-white actress was making her the Snow White story inaccurate to the original story. And this also got very amplified when she then started making statements how they were going to purposely go away from the original novel and they were going to make it to where like the princess isn't going to chase the man and stuff like that. And that really sparked a lot of rage within the right-wing media because they felt like she was purposely making jabs towards more traditional beliefs, which are things that they hold. Rachel herself also faced a lot of personal harassment, and Disney themselves also shift their entire like support from Rachel to trying to get her into a gag order, which she later would try and like refuse, trying to use her contract as a reason for her to speak out. But besides this, Disney remained to keep themselves silent for the most part, and if anything, just kept putting more and more its ads out and kept trying to put out this type of like new exclusive message. Looking back at all four cases, we can see some clear patterns, the biggest one being that nostalgia seems to trigger anger about beloved characters. When it comes to especially Disney characters like Snow White or The Little Mermaid, it seems that people feel this personal ownership over their classic characters, and when new actors or actresses come in, there seems to be a debate about whether representing the actors' culture should overshadow trying to follow the traditional characters' culture and traditions. Which kind of leads into the second pattern that race and tradition seem to be the biggest weapons when it comes to online warfare, especially when it comes to things like wanting to change the race or when it comes to having to change the gender of specific characters. It seems a lot of people get more angry about that and see it as a political or racial agenda to push onto others. Which kind of brings into the second thing that platforms like YouTube and TikTok often fuel this rage even more because you have things trending like hashtag not my Ariel, where you can look it up and find a place just feeling hate about one specific actor, actress, or controversy or situation in general. This also can be amplified by right wing media or left wing media, having the right wing saying things like woke casting and the left saying that it's racist. The last thing, which is kind of a little bit different, is the fact that it seems vile outrage tends to be louder than the support initially, which also leads into the fact that it seems like support grows slow. You can see things like, especially with hashtags fueling rage, that whenever an actor or actress first comes out and there's a lot of controversy, once you have people like Disney or BBC showing their abilities, people seem to calm down a little bit, but it's slow compared to how fast the rage comes. Along with looking with patterns, we also notice the PR strategies in the crisis management team's reactions, and a lot of it does follow kind of similar patterns. They usually do try to stay quiet at first to avoid all the loudest parts of the hate, but then they'll always usually switch to some sort of emotional story talking about the actor themselves and the actor's legacy and the actor's family, trying to gain support for the actor. And then a lot of times this kind of leads into this sort of reclaiming the narrative and trying to like retake the story and adapt it into some new, better version type of thing. So, what do these patterns tell us? They can tell us a few different things. The first thing that it can tell us is that people seem to have some sort of personal ownership over beloved characters due to their own nostalgia for watching the characters over a long period of time. It also kind of tells us that we should be reflecting on our own culture because obviously there are some deep tensions of when it comes to inclusion versus nostalgia. The other thing that these patterns can tell us is the fact that PR companies value long-term inclusion and are willing to stir up controversy to try and put it out there. What I mean by this is the fact that it's obvious that a lot of these media companies are aware that they will face backlash and still choose to keep on pushing different sort of agendas and making different sort of progressive changes throughout their movies. Um, in the end, these reactions show us how media, identity, and public memory are all very deeply connected, and why representation is such a powerful and emotional issue, especially when it comes to the issue and topic of should we be representing their iconic traditional characters in like storybook traits, or if we should be trying to represent the actors' cultural and natural abilities. These are some of my sources, and I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you so much.